The wind dragged dust across the porch as Mara Ellison, dressed in her late husband's long coat, gripped the shotgun she rarely used. The prairie had grown cruel since she became a widow, but nothing frightened her more than the man riding toward her farmhouse. Colt Rayner, a cowboy with a reputation sharper than the spurs on his boots, dangerous, unpredictable, whispered about in every saloon from Dust Creek to Silver Bend. People said he'd lived by the gun too long to ever lay it down. People also said he never chased anything that didn't matter. Yet here he was, coming straight for her. Mara stepped back as Colt swung off his horse, the fading sun burning gold along his hat brim. His eyes, storm gray and intense, met hers. "Even in, Mara," he said, voice low enough to stir something she'd buried. She steadied the shotgun. "Please don't come inside, Colt. You shouldn't be here." He lifted his hands, not in surrender but in understanding. "You still think I came to cause trouble. You're trouble even when you're trying not to be." He almost smiled. Mara's heart thudded painfully. Colt had been her husband's closest friend. He'd stayed away after the funeral, out of honor, she supposed. But now he was here, stepping toward a life she didn't trust herself to feel again. "I heard the McCall gang's been circling this ridge," Colt said. "You're alone. I'm not leaving you unprotected. I survived just fine." "No," he said softly. "You survived because you're strong. But strong doesn't mean you should stand alone." For a moment, the air between them felt thick with everything unsaid. Mara lowered her gaze before her heart betrayed her. "I can take care of myself," she whispered. Colt studied her with the kind of patience that made her chest tighten. "I ain't here to take your freedom," he murmured. "Only to guard your life." But she shook her head, voice cracking. "Colt, if you walk through that door, I'm afraid I won't be able to guard my heart." He froze, like the words hit deeper than a bullet. The prairie wind howled. He stepped back, touched the brim of his hat, and for the first time in years, she saw fear in the eyes of the most dangerous cowboy alive. Not of outlaws, not of death, but of loving her too much. Night fell heavy and fast. Mara lit one lantern, its glow flickering against the wooden walls as she paced. Colt's footsteps had faded hours ago, but the echo of what she'd confessed clung to her ribs like a secret she could no longer swallow. Outside, something shifted. A twig snapped, too heavy for a rabbit, too cautious for a deer. Her pulse jerked. The McCall gang. She grabbed the shotgun, hands shaking. She wasn't afraid of outlaws, she was afraid of the loneliness that echoed louder with every creak of the house. But fear or not, she would fight. Before she reached the door, a knock rattled it. A familiar voice slid through the wood. "Mara, it's me." Her knees nearly buckled. She opened the door just enough to see Colt's silhouette, moonlight carving him in silver. His hat was gone. Dust clung to his coat. His gun belt hung loose, like he'd ridden hard, and dangerously. "You left," she said, breath trembling. "I did." He stepped closer. "And then I heard riders. Not mine." Her throat tightened. "The McCalls. 3 of 'em. I dealt with one. The others are hidden in the pines. They ain't leavin' till they get what they want." She swallowed. "And what do you want, Colt?" His breath hitched. The truth he'd been burying for years rose like a fire behind his eyes. "You," he said simply. "But I'll walk away if you ask it again." It was the gentlest thing she'd ever heard from a man carved by violence. Thunder rumbled. The night pressed in. Mara exhaled the breath she'd been holding since the day she buried her husband. "Colt, I didn't tell you to stay out because I feared you." She pushed the door fully open. "I told you because losing someone again terrifies me more than any outlaw ever could." His jaw tightened, a man fighting battles inside and out. "You won't lose me," he vowed. "Not to them. Not to this world. Not ever." Her hand trembled as she reached out, touching the rough fabric of his coat. "Then come inside," she whispered. This time, he didn't hesitate. Colt stepped over the threshold, not as a dangerous cowboy, not as a wandering gunslinger, but as a man who had finally found the one place he wanted to stay. And behind them, as the door closed, the lantern's warm glow swallowed the darkness. Together, they would face whatever came next.